Hi, welcome to our channel where we share the most intriguing stories. It started with a hammer, loud, arrogant, and wrong. One quiet morning, a bridge appeared on my land, built by a smug HOA without asking. No warning, no permission. Just trespass and timber, they thought I'd roll over. They forgot one thing: I don't lose battles on my own land. I'd lived beside that lake for 10 years without a single damn issue. 30 acres of quiet, forested peace, with my own private shoreline, and a view so serene it could silence the most restless soul. I wasn't the kind of man who got involved in town gossip or cared what the HOA was up to across the water. As long as they stayed on their side, I stayed on mine. Seemed fair. Then, one cool Thursday morning in early spring, I heard hammering. Not woodpecker hammering. I know the difference. This was the industrial, purposeful thud of someone building something that didn't belong. I followed the noise through the trees, down to the far edge of my shoreline, and there it was, a half-finished wooden bridge reaching across my damn lake like it owned the place. No notice, no request, not even a lousy, "Hi, neighbor," just bold-as-hell construction. I stood there for a moment, blinking at it like maybe I'd missed something. Maybe this was a dream or a misunderstanding. But no. I recognized the logos on the contractor trucks parked on the other side of the lake. Lakeview Heritage HOA. Brand new development. I'd seen their signs go up last fall. Gated, smug-looking community built for people who drink wine at noon and measure self-worth by fence height. I walked the shoreline, boots sinking into the wet moss, until I reached the base of the construction. 2 pilings had been driven directly into the soft slope of my land. They weren't even subtle about it. It wasn't like the bridge hovered near my property. No, it stabbed into it like a knife. I went back to the house, pulled out my land survey maps, and confirmed what I already knew. That bridge wasn't near my property. It was on it. Dead center. I took photos, logged the GPS coordinates, and drafted a formal letter to whoever the hell was running that HOA. Turned out her name was Karen Draper. I should have guessed. In my letter, I explained, calmly, I thought, that they were building on private land without consent. I asked for immediate cessation of construction and full removal of what was already installed. I even attached the relevant deed and property maps. Certified mail, return receipt requested. I didn't hear back. What I did see 5 days later was a professionally printed banner that read, "Grand Opening of Heritage Lake Bridge, April 15th. I damn near choked on my coffee. They had the nerve to turn this trespass into a community event. That weekend, they hosted a full ceremony. I watched from the trees while they cut a ribbon, took selfies, handed out cupcakes to the kids, and posed with local HOA reps like they were unveiling a Statue of Liberty. They even had someone from a local HOA magazine there. I could hear them across the water. It's such a generous gift to the neighborhood. Generous, my ass. No one had mentioned my name. No one had acknowledged the landowner, me, in any way. It was like I'd ceased to exist, but I was there. I had photos. I had documents. I had patience. I didn't go charging in that day. I'm not a man who makes scenes. I believe in preparation. Let them have their little party. Let them post their bridge selfies and sip rosé on a structure built over my private shoreline. Because while they celebrated, I started planning. And once I start planning, I don't stop. I'm not much for revenge, but I believe in consequences. The morning after that ridiculous bridge ceremony, I drove down to Olympia and scheduled a meeting with a licensed land surveyor. His name was Doug Pritchard, and he looked like the kind of guy who kept 3 generations of topography maps in his basement for fun. I showed him the documents I already had, including the deed, the original survey from when I bought the property 10 years ago, and the fresh photos of the bridge. Doug agreed to come out and do a full cadastral resurvey of my parcel, shoreline included. 3 days later, Doug showed up with a heavy-duty GPS system, a drone, and a clipboard the size of a tombstone. He spent 6 hours walking every inch of the boundary, taking measurements, confirming coordinates, and documenting where exactly the HOA's bridge pilings stabbed into my land. I followed him most of the way, silent, arms crossed, jaw tight. When he handed me the final signed report, he tapped the section that mattered most. "This right here," he said. "2 pilings 12 feet inside your boundary. There's no ambiguity." Exactly what I needed. That night, I sat on my deck staring across the water at the glowing string lights they'd hung under their precious bridge. It was peaceful, sure, but the kind of peace that makes you grit your teeth. That's when the idea struck. Not to tear it down. Not yet. That's too quick. Too clean. No, I wanted to turn the land around it into something better, something useful, something legally impenetrable. I called up my architect friend, Sal, a brilliant guy who usually designs boutique retreats and overpriced cliffside spas for tech bros. I gave him the basic plan: a large stone patio near the shore, a covered grilling area, a fire pit, a full outdoor kitchen, maybe even a hot tub under a pergola, and scattered nearby, 4 luxury microcabins, short-term rentals with lake access. Nothing excessive, just enough to keep people out and the IRS happy. Sal was excited, said he'd draw up sketches by the weekend. Meanwhile, I filed for permits. County zoning office was slow, but I kept it legal, clean, airtight. Nothing HOA could challenge without embarrassing themselves. I included all the setback requirements, shoreline regulations, and erosion protections. I even hired an ecologist to confirm the build wouldn't harm any sensitive flora. I wasn't just playing defense. I was going pro. By the time my permits were approved, my contractors were lined up and ready. Construction started on a crisp Monday morning. While HOA residents strolled the bridge, sipping coffee and pretending it was theirs to keep, bulldozers rolled onto my property to pour gravel, dig utility trenches, and lay foundations. The look on their faces was worth every cent. I didn't say a word to them. I let the work speak. But just to make things clear, I had my crew build 2 decorative stone walls, one at each end of the bridge where it touched my land. They were tasteful, artistic, and very, very solid, just high enough to stop foot traffic, with arched iron signs bolted into the top. Private property, resort use only. I didn't lock anything. I didn't install spikes or barbed wire. I didn't need to. The message was crystal clear. You don't cross a line that's carved in stone. Of course, I expected blowback. And, oh, I got it. Later that evening, I heard knocking at my front door. There stood a man in a Lakeview HOA polo, mid-50s, sunglasses on his head like some mall cop on vacation. He cleared his throat and said, "Sir, I'm here on behalf of President Karen Draper. She'd like to discuss the—" I cut him off. "You're trespassing." He blinked. "This is a community matter, and we, not your community, not your matter. Get off my land." He left, red-faced, mumbling about bylaws and neighborhood harmony. I didn't even crack a smile until the door closed. Over the next few days, they tried to get creative. Emails, certified letters, even one pathetic attempt at a peaceful walk-in where 3 HOA board members approached the construction site claiming they had the right to inspect shared infrastructure. They were met by my site foreman, Big Mike, 6'4", built like a brick wall and fond of saying things like, "You don't want to trip on a nail, do you?" They didn't try again. I stayed quiet, but I was watching and recording every approach, every message, every smug little hint that they thought the bridge was theirs forever, because soon I'd remind them what happens when you build on land you don't own. They say people reveal their true nature when they're denied something they believe they're entitled to. Karen Draper must have thought she was a damn queen, because the meltdown that followed was nothing short of royal. It started the morning after I sealed off the bridge. I woke up to an email from someone named HOA Communications Officer, which sounded like the title of a war propagandist, demanding a restoration of open pedestrian access across the Heritage Bridge. The message was littered with phrases like easement rights, community benefit, and spirit of shared use. I didn't bother replying. If they wanted legal, they were going to get it. On my terms. That afternoon, Karen herself arrived. Not a letter this time, not an email. The woman showed up in person, marching up my gravel driveway in her ridiculous wedge sandals, clipboard in hand, flanked by 2 HOA board members who looked like they'd practiced scowling in the mirror. I was outside overseeing the start of the patio framing. Sal was there too, drinking coffee and pointing out angles like he was designing Versailles. "Mr. Stone," Karen called out like I was a student in detention. "We need to talk." I raised an eyebrow. "You need to leave." "This bridge connects our community to public trails," she announced, waving her clipboard like it was a royal decree. "You are unlawfully obstructing essential infrastructure that benefits hundreds of residents." I crossed my arms. "You built that bridge on private property without permission." "We believed the shoreline was public land," one of her flunkies piped up weakly. I pointed to the stone wall. "Then you believed wrong." Karen bristled. "You're creating unnecessary hostility. There is legal precedent for easements by necessity. If you force this, we'll be compelled to take formal action. That's when I smiled, not a polite smile, the kind of smile that shows teeth. Funny you mentioned formal action. You'll be receiving a cease and desist letter by morning, along with a notarized boundary map, satellite images, and a formal complaint for trespass and unauthorized construction. Karen blinked. She hadn't expected resistance with documentation. Her voice faltered. This isn't neighborly. I'm not your neighbor, I said. I'm your plaintiff if you push any further. They left in a huff, Karen's heels crunching angrily against the gravel. Sal whistled low. That woman's got the energy of a collapsing condo. The next morning, my attorney, a real pit bull named Denise McCrary, fired off the cease and desist, certified. We sent copies to the HOA board, the city permitting office, and even the local newspaper editor, just for fun. We attached the land survey, drone footage, construction permit, and highlighted excerpts from Washington state law on property boundaries and illegal encroachments. If they wanted to go to war, I wanted them to know I'd already brought the tanks. Then came the escalation. Karen called the sheriff's department, claimed I was illegally obstructing community mobility. 2 deputies showed up, clearly annoyed they were wasting a Tuesday morning on a land dispute. I greeted them with a copy of my deed and the latest construction permits in a tidy folder. They took one look, nodded, and said, "Looks like you're in the right here, Mr. Stone. We'll let them know this is civil, not criminal." Karen stood on the other side of the bridge, glaring at me like I'd sunk her battleship. A few days later, things went quiet. Too quiet. No more emails, no more visits. But I've been around long enough to know that silence doesn't mean surrender. It usually means someone's working the phones behind your back. Sure enough, a week later, I was served with legal documents. Lakeview Heritage HOA was officially suing me in civil court for unlawful obstruction of community infrastructure, interference with public access, and, my personal favorite, acts of spiteful aggression contrary to HOA cooperative values. I laughed so hard I nearly choked on my coffee. But I didn't just laugh. I called Denise. "Looks like it's go time," I told her. She laughed too. "Perfect. Let's counter hard. How does trespassing, illegal construction, misappropriation of HOA funds, and environmental damage sound?" "Like music," I said. We got to work. Lawsuits have a way of waking people up. My phone, which had been silent outside the occasional weather alert, suddenly came alive. Reporters, locals, even an old fishing buddy I hadn't seen since my beard was still brown. Everyone wanted to know the same thing. Is it true the HOA built a bridge on your land without permission? Yup, I said. And now they want to sue me for blocking it. Word spread fast. A few local blogs picked up the story, and once the phrase illegal bridge started trending in regional news, the real fun began. Denise filed our counterclaim within 72 hours. It wasn't a slap on the wrist, it was a legal hammer. We sued Lakeview Heritage HOA for trespassing, unauthorized construction, encroachment, unlawful use of private property, disruption of licensed business development, and ecological damage to shoreline habitat. The total damages claimed $2.1 million. Denise didn't pull punches. She included satellite imagery, drone footage, time-stamped photographs of every phase of their construction, and highlighted building code violations. She also cited an environmental study we commissioned that showed their bridge pilings had disturbed a small marsh area, habitat for nesting birds. Bad optics, bad law. HOA was in trouble, and we weren't done yet. Then came discovery. Turned out Karen had been playing fast and loose with the rules. One of the internal HOA emails obtained by Denise's subpoena practically sang with arrogance. The shoreline is unlikely to be contested. No one's used that land in years. Another one? No need to flag it with zoning. It'll just slow us down. And the gem. A scanned copy of a doctored plat map, conveniently redrawn to make it look like the bridge crossed a public access strip. Only problem? The original legitimate map showed no such thing. Karen had altered public records. We brought in a forensic document analyst who confirmed the metadata on the file had been tampered with, and worse, that the version used to justify the HOA's community project was never filed with the city. It had been slipped into an internal HOA archive to justify the expense. Speaking of which, their financials showed a withdrawal of over $120,000, marked as community trail improvements, funneled directly to the bridge contractor. None of this was voted on by HOA members. That was the final nail. Denise drafted a motion for fraud, added it to our case, and sent a copy to the county prosecutor's office. Suddenly, we had more than a civil dispute. We had the outlines of a criminal investigation. Meanwhile, I kept building. The patio was halfway done. The grill station had been installed, complete with polished stone countertops and a 4-burner beast of a unit that made my old camping setup look like a child's toy. Sal's team had already finished the first micro cabin, and I'd put it up for rent under the name Stone Lake Cabin 1. 2-night minimum, lakefront view, outdoor sauna optional, and yes, it booked out immediately. From my side of the bridge, I could hear HOA residents muttering. Some peered across with binoculars. One guy, I kid you not, flew a drone over my property until it was intercepted by Big Mike's tennis racket. The thing spiraled into the lake like a mosquito meeting a windshield. HOA complained. I told them I had no problem calling the FAA. Karen, meanwhile, was unraveling. She sent a public letter to the community blaming landowner aggression and misinformation, but her tone had changed. Less smug, more rattled, probably because Denise sent a second letter to the HOA's insurance provider. You could practically hear the board meetings imploding from across the lake. We had momentum, and for the first time since the bridge appeared, I felt like the ground beneath my feet was fully mine again, solid, protected, ready for battle. And I had no plans to stop. You'd think that once you slap someone with a multi-million-dollar lawsuit and expose them for altering official maps, they'd maybe sit back and reassess their life choices. Not Karen Draper. No, she doubled down. About a week after we filed our amended complaint with the fraud charges, I woke up to find a notice duct taped to the decorative stone wall near the bridge. It was from the Lakeview Heritage HOA Legal Compliance Committee, which I was pretty sure Karen invented sometime after her second glass of Chardonnay. It read like a parody of itself. Per Community Code Section 3.8b, access to established pathways may not be obstructed, even by adjacent landowners. Failure to restore access will result in additional legal action and potential fines. They posted the damn thing on my property. That's when I knew she wasn't just desperate, she was losing control. Denise, of course, was thrilled. They just admitted, in writing, that they believe their HOA bylaws override property deeds and state law. That's gold in court. She filed for a restraining order against any further unauthorized postings or entry by HOA officials, citing harassment and ongoing trespass. The judge granted it the next day, but Karen wasn't done. 2 mornings later, Big Mike called me from the job site, his voice flat. "We've got visitors." I walked down to the lake and saw them. 6 of them, actually. Karen, 2 board members, a man with a clipboard pretending to be an engineer, and 2 uniformed officers from the county zoning office. Real ones this time, not HOA wannabes. Karen waved like she was hosting a backyard barbecue. "Mr. Stone, we're conducting a zoning inspection per community petition." Denise had warned me they might try something like this. Pull strings to trigger a county review. I nodded calmly and asked for a copy of the inspection order. The guy with the clipboard handed it over. I scanned it. Legitimate, but incomplete. "This is for Lot 42B, I said, pointing to the paperwork. "That's not my parcel." The zoning agent frowned. "This isn't your parcel." "Nope," I said, pulling out my own copy of the parcel map. "I'm Lot 40A, different side of the lake. Looks like someone sent you on a goose chase." Karen tried to interject, claiming it was a clerical error, but the zoning officers weren't interested in her excuses. They packed up and left without inspecting a thing. I offered them coffee before they went. Karen stormed off, heels stabbing into the damp shoreline like she was trying to kill the earth itself. The next blow came via certified mail. HOA had filed for a preliminary injunction. They wanted the court to force me to reopen the bridge before the lawsuit concluded. Their justification, that it was vital infrastructure for community morale and exercise. Denise laughed so hard she had to mute the phone. You can't fabricate a legal right to trespass just because your neighbors like the view. But we still had to respond formally. And respond we did. With a 20-page opposition brief, including every inch of evidence, photo, map, and statement we'd collected since the start. We reminded the judge that the bridge was built without permit, without permission, and with full knowledge they were using private land. Then we dropped the bomb. Our forensic tech discovered that Karen had used HOA funds to pay the contractor directly through a personal intermediary, a consulting firm registered in her cousin's name. It was laundering, plain and simple. We filed a motion to compel financial records and flagged the payment for the county prosecutor. We also copied the Attorney General's office, just to be polite. Within 72 hours, Karen's personal attorney withdrew from her case. Not HOA's attorney, hers. That's when the calls started, first from reporters, then from HOA residents. Turns out, when someone finds out their HOA fees were funneled into a fraudulent construction project and a private slush fund, they get a little testy. The final punch: Sal's second cabin went live on the vacation site that weekend. Booked solid for 3 months. The Stone Lake Retreat was already turning a profit. And we weren't even finished yet. Karen could keep pretending this was a matter of community unity and trails. But to me, it was simple. She built a bridge to nowhere. I was just making sure she paid the toll. The court hearing on the preliminary injunction was scheduled for a Thursday. I wore a navy jacket, clean jeans, and boots polished just enough to remind people I owned land, not stocks. Denise walked in beside me, crisp and efficient as ever, her briefcase packed with enough paper to make a lumberjack weep. Karen arrived 10 minutes late. She looked like she hadn't slept in a week. Her usual armor, stiff blazer, smug posture had been replaced with a drooping shawl and a constantly vibrating phone she kept checking like her reputation depended on it. Which, to be fair, it did. The courtroom wasn't crowded, but the front row held 2 local reporters and one man I recognized as a member of the Lakeview HOA board. He looked like he'd been dragged there against his will. Karen didn't acknowledge him. The judge, a middle-aged woman named Morales, got straight to business. Karen's attorney, not her personal one, mind you, he'd already bailed, argued that the bridge was a necessary route for residents to access hiking trails and that closing it off created hardship and emotional distress. Denise stood, adjusted her jacket, and said, "Your Honor, this isn't a hiking trail. It's a structure built on private property without consent, permits, or legal right. We're not closing anything. We're enforcing property law, and we have documentation of fraud, falsified maps, and misused HOA funds to back it up." She handed the judge a binder the size of a family Bible. Morales flipped through it, occasionally frowning, occasionally raising an eyebrow. When she finally spoke, it was with the cool weight of someone who'd seen 1,000 lies before breakfast. "Motion for injunction is denied," she said flatly. "Property owner retains full control pending outcome of the civil suit. And I want counsel for the plaintiff to provide a full accounting of construction permits and HOA authorizations within 10 days. Karen didn't even blink, just stared at the desk like it might swallow her whole. Outside the courthouse, Denise smiled. Next stop, full trial. But the cracks were already widening back at Lakeview. Over the next week, I started getting anonymous letters. Real paper ones slipped into my mailbox. A couple were angry, sure, calling me greedy or selfish, but most, quiet apologies. One woman wrote, "We didn't know the bridge was illegal. Karen never told us." Another one said, "If you ever open that resort for community events, we'd love to be included." It was surreal. The same people who'd once crossed the bridge without so much as a wave were now second-guessing the whole damn thing. Then came the news I hadn't expected so soon. A whistleblower from the HOA board, the same guy I saw in court, leaked documents to the city. Meeting minutes showing Karen had presented the bridge project as pre-approved by adjacent landowners. Budget lines marked deferred vote, with no record of member approval. A contractor invoice with her personal email CC'd, not the HOAs. It was a smoking gun bonfire. The city opened a formal review. So did the HOA's own insurance provider. Suddenly, Karen wasn't just fighting me. She was fighting everyone. Meanwhile, over on my side of the lake, we installed a custom steel sign at the base of the sealed-off bridge. Black letters, all caps, "Private property, no trespassing." Construction of this bridge was unauthorized. Beneath it, a QR code linking to the county parcel map, just for the curious. I watched from the patio one afternoon as a group of Lakeview residents approached the far end of the bridge, stared at the sign, then quietly turned back. No more arguments, no more complaints, just silence. That weekend, we finished the outdoor spa zone, sauna, plunge pool, gas fire pit. Bookings jumped another 20%. Sal started talking about adding a wine tasting deck. Karen, meanwhile, stopped showing up. We hadn't even gotten to trial yet, but I could already see where this was headed. The lake was calm again. But beneath the surface, the pressure was building. The subpoena came in a plain manila envelope, but its contents hit like a grenade. The city's audit had concluded, and the findings were clear. Lakeview Heritage HOA had acted outside the scope of its charter, violated zoning ordinances, misrepresented easement boundaries, and used falsified documentation to initiate a construction project on private land. The report didn't use the word fraud lightly. It used it 10 times in 3 pages. Karen was named personally. A day later, the county prosecutor's office announced a formal investigation into HOA financial misconduct. Local news picked it up immediately. Karen's name made the 6 o'clock segment next to words like embezzlement, malfeasance, and criminal referral. The smug queen of the HOA was now a public scandal. Denise moved quickly, filing a formal motion to compel full financial records, including personal emails, contractor agreements, and HOA board communications. The court granted it without argument. Karen's legal team, now 3 lawyers short and replaced with a visibly stressed public affairs attorney, scrambled to delay. It didn't work. Within the week, depositions began. HOA board members were called in one by one. I didn't attend, but Denise filled me in after each session. 3 different members claim Karen told them the bridge was approved by you personally, she said over coffee one morning. She even said you were donating shoreline access as a goodwill gesture. She raised an eyebrow. That true? Only if goodwill means flipping them the bird, I said. But Karen didn't stop lying. In her own deposition, she doubled down, claimed she had a verbal agreement with me, and that I'd later changed my mind out of spite. Denise, without missing a beat, showed the court time-stamped emails where Karen had actively avoided my inquiries, ignored cease and desist letters, and even edited out my name from internal HOA meeting notes. The judge wasn't amused. Neither was the press. One HOA resident, a guy named Barry, organized a community meeting that Karen refused to attend. Instead, he stood up with copies of the court filings and said, "This is where our dues went. Into someone else's property, into fake documents, into a bridge we don't even own." Dozens of members signed a petition demanding Karen's immediate resignation. And then, the final trigger, the insurance company pulled coverage for any litigation related to the bridge. No financial shield. HOA now faced the very real possibility of paying my damages out of pocket. The board panicked. 3 members resigned in 2 days. A special session was called. Karen was formally suspended pending the results of both the civil trial and the criminal inquiry. I didn't even know HOAs could suspend their presidents, but apparently, if the alternative is bankruptcy, they'll rewrite the rules mid-meeting. Through all of this, my resort thrived. We finished the 5th and final rental cabin. The spa zone had a wait list. A regional wedding planner reached out, asking if she could reserve the patio for rustic lakeside ceremonies. I said yes for $5,000 and an NDA. My bridge, the illegal one, still stood, now silent and blocked at both ends. A rotting monument to arrogance, ringed by bright wildflowers and humming with quiet justice. I took a whiskey to the dock one evening and watched the last light fade across the lake. Across the water, the Lakeview houses sat dark and still, the once vibrant community now fractured by one woman's ambition and lies. And the best part? We still hadn't reached trial. The trial began on a Monday morning in early spring. The air was crisp, the skies clear, and the courthouse packed, not just with lawyers and reporters, but with more Lakeview residents than I could count. Some glared at me. Most didn't. The drama had dragged on for nearly a year, and people were tired. They wanted closure. So did I. Karen sat across the aisle in a gray blazer that looked 1 size too big and 10 shades too dull. She didn't make eye contact. Her new attorney, court-appointed if I was reading the tea leaves right, flipped through a sad-looking binder while Denise organized our stacks of color-coded tabs like she was prepping for war. Opening arguments were clean. HOA claimed, again, that the bridge was built in pursuit of community benefit and that any confusion over land ownership was due to overlapping maps. Denise stood, raised a single document, the official county parcel map, and said, "There is no overlap. There is theft. Let's not confuse the two." We called our witnesses. The surveyor, the contractor who refused the job because Karen wouldn't show permits, the zoning officer who showed up to the wrong parcel, the HOA treasurer who admitted, under oath, that he never saw a vote on the bridge budget. One after another, the puzzle clicked into place. Karen took the stand on the second day. It didn't go well. She stumbled through her testimony, contradicted her own board members, tried to explain why she deleted emails after being warned about litigation, and finally broke down when Denise showed the payment trail to her cousin's consulting firm. The judge had to call a recess when Karen burst into tears. I felt exactly zero sympathy. The jury deliberated for just under 3 hours. They found in our favor on every count. The court ordered the HOA to pay $850,000 in damages for unauthorized construction, ecological impact, interference with commercial activity, and punitive damages for intentional trespass. Karen herself was referred to the county for criminal charges related to document fraud and financial misconduct. The judge's final order required the HOA to dismantle the bridge entirely at their expense, restore the shoreline, and issue a formal apology published in the local paper and sent to all Lakeview residents. Karen never made it to the press conference. She was arrested 2 days later, booked for felony misappropriation of funds, forgery, and falsification of public records. Her mugshot made the evening news. The once proud president of Lakeview Heritage was now looking at 10 years in state prison. As for the HOA, they barely survived the year. With no funds, no insurance, and no leadership, they dissolved and reformed under new management, stripped of enforcement power and forbidden from managing shared construction. The heritage was over. Back on my land, we held a small ceremony when the bridge came down. The final nail was pried loose on a warm afternoon, and the last wooden beam dropped into the flatbed of a county truck. I toasted with Sal and Denise on the patio that evening, watching the sun sink behind the evergreens. The resort, now officially named Stone Lake Retreat, had a 6-month waitlist, 2 magazine features, and an open contract with an events company. What started as my quiet lakeside home was now one of the most exclusive getaways in the region. I still kept the warning sign near where the bridge once stood. Not out of spite, just as a reminder, don't build on someone else's land, especially not mine.